Welcome back to Ride JBI. I'm JB. I'm joined with my coworker, Anthony, and our longtime friend, Spencer Luzak. Spencer, I've had a relationship with for a couple years now. I've had a chance to help him out with a couple, let's say, replica bike builds. One of those is this Pastrana Edition RM250. That'll be its own separate video, but we got to meet a couple years ago. Actually, no, we talked on the phone many years ago, and then I got to meet him just for a few minutes at the Red Bull Straight Rhythm race at Pomona Raceway. And it was at the end of the day. It was really quick. We said hello, gave each other a hug, and I think that was about it in terms of actual like in-person contact. But we've always stayed in contact since then. Many years later, we touched base. He told me I had this awesome KTM 350. At the time, he had this WP suspension on there, the stock stuff, and he was interested in trying some of our JBI spec KYB A-kit forks, which you see right here, along with our matching JBI spec WP shock build. To touch into that, so these are the KYB A-kit forks that you can buy, but we did our own JBI spec build on that. By that I mean we revalved the internals to be our JBI spec motocross spec. We're not implying that the stock spec isn't good, but we have found a way to take what's good and make it already better. We also paired that with what's called our JBI Pro Perch. That gives the fork some really good bottoming the last few inches of travel. And then we also pair that with our JBI volume spacer. That helps us control the progression of the fork as it compresses through its travel. On the rear shock here, we did our JBI spec revalve. That includes our, of course, JBI spec valving with 2 additional hardware upgrades. One of those is going to be the bladder kit, which you can visually see here on the outside of the shock. And then the other piece is one that you cannot see. That is the JBI titanium compression piston. That is behind the compression adjuster on the shock. What we have found is the stock piston has very unique and different geometry that is not similar with any other shock out there. By that I mean the WP kit shock has a different style of compression adjuster piston. It has one that is similar to what you'd find in any KYB or Showa, OEM, or KYB shock. So we noticed this difference and said, you know what? Let's have commonality among all our shocks, design a piston that is just like that so we can utilize those benefits. So in short, we take this stock shock and we make it as close as possible to the other WP and Showa and KYB kit shocks that are out there. We were really happy to build Spencer some really badass suspension to complement this already badass bike that he has built in terms of the chassis, the bolts, all the fine details, what he did to the motor with Proven Moto, which is just south of here in Provo. So he has an awesome build already, and we're happy to complement what's there. So with that kind of introduction, I'm gonna pass the microphone to Anthony, and he'll tell you where Spencer got to break this new setup in at.
Hi guys, welcome back to another video. And we are very fortunate and thankful enough to be up here in Salt Lake City, Utah for not only the final round of Supercross, but to also ride the famous Flying Iron Horse Ranch. I've never been there, JB's never been there. So we were just along for the ride and had huge smiles on our face rolling into the property for the first time. Not only seeing just the beautiful landscape that the Luzak family has, but also seeing the track as well. There's just so much to offer with just shy of 160 acres, if I remember correctly. The front yard is actually the lower track, which is more of a Supercross style track. And then they have a track that they're building beyond that, which we'll get into more later. But we tested this set of suspension on the front track. So to give you guys an idea, it's not a full Supercross style track, but it takes a lot of inspiration from a Supercross track. It has a whoop section, some steeper lips, some steeper landings, but a lot of the jump faces and landings are proportional to each other. So you do get a lot of air time, but you also have a lot of cushion when you do land from being up high in the air. So with this KYB JBI spec A-kit forks and our JBI spec WP linkage shock, Spencer was able to see the small to medium bump compliance as the track got rougher throughout the day. And then going back to those jumps, he was able to see just how much bottoming resistance this setup had in comparison to his stock setup from WP. So overall, it was a great time riding the track and then getting to see Spencer, the man behind the track, ride his bike on the track as well. It looked like he was having a lot of fun out there. He was able to charge harder into the corners. There's one section in particular after the whoop section, you go left, down the straightaway, left again, and then there's a single kind of a roller into a tight left-hander, and you were able to charge really hard and then rail the berm after. And it just seemed like you had a smile from ear to ear. So I'm going to hand the phone over to you, talk about your riding impressions of the bike and what you think that we can improve on with our JBI spec settings.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks, JB. All right, guys. I am Spencer Luzak. Our family owns the Flying Iron Horse Ranch, which is just outside of Park City, Utah. Is our family place. It's a closed facility. The front yard is, I guess, that hybrid Supercross outdoor type track. A little bit lippier jumps, but as Anthony mentioned, we build everything with large safety decks, so you have a smooth transition. The only technicality is just your timing, jumping, jumps close to each other and then getting into 180 bull turns using the brakes. But it definitely fine-tunes your skills. We also call it our honesty track, because if you can ride that one well and start getting your timing together, you can take it to an outdoor track and really open up with the same skills you're learning. So even though it's not full Supercross, it's also not an outdoor track. It's kind of that hybrid to build your skills on a tighter course with steeper lips. That's where we rode most of the time. We also went to our upper track, which is the backyard, and that is a full 2-mile outdoor national style track with about 1,000 feet of elevation change in one lap from start to finish. It's still under construction, so there are areas with larger than life boulders because it's all rock that we're working to cap and get excavated out, but the rest of it's clay and then we'll turn into what the lower track is. So I would say it was a fair balance, not only between maybe possible G-outs, but tighter bermed corners, sand sections, and full outdoor where you can let the bike stretch. So even though we don't have everything built in right now, I think it gave a good idea of what the suspension can handle from maybe tight and choppy, short, like blow-through strokes, and then wide open if you're OJing something or hitting the 140-foot step up, but landing smoothly. That's kind of what we'll go over. So prior to the JBI spec KYB setup for the full kit forks and the stock shock with the JBI custom tuning, I was running a stock setup WP, dealing with the air fork, as many people do. Some people love them, some people hate them. I don't know if I want to say I fall in the middle. I usually lean towards the dislike on an air fork. I prefer spring. All my other bikes are a spring fork. That's just what I'm used to. More comfortable. I don't mind the weight penalty, so I really don't buy into the gimmick of it's just a lighter weight front end. I will take plush comfort over weight any day. So getting into this custom build, for me, the 350 is actually a 385. There's a lot of works parts, so this thing definitely moves. It has a lot of torque. We're running a 1452 gearing because the motor can push it, even at our elevation, which is about 52 to 5,600 feet elevation. So we are down on power, but this bike still hauls the mail and revs to about 14.1. So it's no slouch, but getting that power to the ground is what we've been struggling with. So JBI came in with Anthony and they worked their magic sauce, putting all of the internals together with the Pro Perch. I don't even remember all the other things they put. This is why they do what they do, right? I just get the benefit of trying it. So initial impressions when I got on the bike, obviously getting used to a spring fork versus the air fork, and it felt very planted, meaning the front end and the back end, they were working in unison together. So we would drop it off the stand and I would see if my weight would go down in comparison front to back at the same time. And that's why I always do a slow test. And then when I start picking up speed, I can tell if the back end is going to kick me really fast or not. If I go over a tabletop and I don't jump the whole thing and I just land a flat, does the bike settle equally? So I actually did a lap or two and JB automatically noticed, hey, I watched you roll around the track. Let's turn up your rear shock a little bit. But he also let me take another hot lap just to see for sure if it's something I liked. So I appreciated that you didn't just make an adjustment without me actually feeling what was going on. That was really helpful. And then after a couple laps, turned up, did we go high speed, low speed? What did we do to the rear shock?
We did both.
Okay.
Yeah, just your track had a little more jumpier than what I kind of accounted for.
Right.
So we went from what we call our plush setting to our firmer settings.
Okay.
On what we call our settings guide.
Okay, and that was just on the shock, correct?
Correct, yeah. Just watching your ride, it seemed like the shock was getting a little more movement than the forks were.
Okay, so more movement in the back end, so we firmed it up a little bit, which our lower track does have a lot more jumps. It's more like a pump track on a BMX bike. Once you get it dialed, you just flow through it, right? But you need to make sure that it's ramping in the back equal to the front and you're not getting popped too fast or too slow. And that helped a lot through the rhythm section in the back. We have this cool little, it's a little bit of a step up with a roller on the backside into 5 sand rollers that hits a long table to a long and low, which is a BMX term, into a little bit of a double that sets you up for this high-speed sand bank turn. And that section was super fun. And just noticing that I could OJ something, whether it's accidental or the bike's just allowing me to push faster and I didn't account for the speed change. And I was fine. I didn't have to recover at all. The bike took it and then allowed me to step long and low and then off into the corner. And I could charge into the sand faster because the bike wasn't starting to hop out of its line. It was confident as far as traction went. I could trust the bike was going to lean in and not going to bobble out of those corners, or the back end wasn't going to be upset on those little bumps and knock the back end sideways. It just pushed through it. So I could stick to where I wanted to go rather than have to timidly let the bike dance a little bit and then catch it. I could just push it into something, get on the throttle, and move out of it. So that was the first thing I noticed, was pushing into turns. Like when I test rode your bike versus mine with the stock setup, I could go into a rut with confidence rather than reacting to it once I got there. So that was my initial impression. And then going off jumps, yeah, again, I OJ'd one or two because I was not thinking I was going as fast as I was, even though I know my own track. So surprise, surprise. And that's the beauty of having a learner's mindset. I wasn't going in expecting the suspension to be perfect because I didn't know what I was looking for. So whenever you get something adjusted, just be sure that you're not preemptively thinking that you know better than they do. Just go in to say, what's going to happen next? I take that data and I put it back in. I give them suggestions. They fine tune it. That is the best way for me to describe how to work with your suspension tuner, because it's going to make your job easier, meaning funner, more fun on the bike, and it makes their job easier because they can adapt rather than you saying, well, it didn't do this. But if you don't know how the bike is supposed to work in the first place, you could be going the wrong direction. So just stay as objective as you can, and that's what I did. And so honestly, firming up the back end, I really didn't know that's what we needed to do. And once JB said, I watched you, I could see it, try it now, then I confirmed it when I came back in. And I wouldn't say my lap times improved because we didn't count it. We weren't tracking numbers. But I definitely felt faster because I felt smoother. In a nutshell, that was my first impression. A little long-winded, but...
No, excellent.
All right, so follow-up or directive questions. What else do you got for me?
My question to you is, we also sell the WP 6500 drop-in, the 7548, which is the AKA cone valve complete fork, and we also sell these. So we sell both for a good reason because they both work really well. But what drove you to want to do the KYB over the WP components?
I do watch the videos that you guys have put out where you're doing comparison and other people are riding them. I do have a few friends that they're religious to cone valves, right, on an Austrian bike. And then friends who are diehard KYB because they're Yamaha guys. I think curiosity more than anything. Okay. I wanted to try something non-conventional for the steel frame. I haven't been on an aluminum frame bike in many years, so riding WP anything, while I've enjoyed it, I don't have a lot of time on the 6500 kit or cone valve, so I really couldn't speak to what I think it does well. But coming from Kawasaki most of my life and then Suzuki, Showa or KYB is what I prefer, and they're spring. So instead of just doing the drop-in kit, me building bikes and like the racetracks, I'm like, you know what? Let's just go full bore, full regalia on this one. And that's why I went full A kit. But knowing the drop-in kit would be very similar to this, I wanted the coatings. I like that you don't get as much stiction having the DLC treatment. I love Kashima coat. So I'm like, let's get the best of everything, because if I'm going to try something that's completely different than WP, I want everything that is different than WP.
Well, we're getting towards the end of the video. Spencer, just thank you, A, for having us out, and B, just giving us your honest impression on the bike. It was an awesome experience just getting to work with you. Most of the time that we were working together, we weren't even in the same location. Spencer was here in Utah. We were in the comfort of the Ride JBI HQ in Murrieta, California, and getting to go back and forth with you was not only really easy, but enjoyable as well. But again, we just really appreciate being out here and you guys watching this long format video, going over both the bikes, the history between Spencer and the JBI family, and now doing our first official test on this KTM 385. Thank you guys for watching. If you aren't already subscribed to the Ride JBI YouTube channel, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. We will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.